Okay. Hello, everyone. A faithful return. I had put away giving these talks until I felt I had received a sign. And so tonight I felt I received a sign to give a lecture. So I thought I will speak about this, and I've decided to direct the whole lectures, the topic of the lectures, on just not metaphysics especially, but only on just an advanced civilization. So this is probably going to be like the final view I'm sharing of my approach to what the idea of God means. So this is an attempt. I won't say I can communicate it, but it's just an attempt. Okay, it's the speaker's attempt to communicate how there is a view that leads to it's an approach to the greatest presence of an in existence. So I just want to share something personal, not to say everybody has to have this view. I'm just sharing it's like certain my views have shifted dramatically. Okay, so just this idea that if there was a human being that had suddenly come across this idea of God, and to wonder about the depth of that idea, not to just see the surface of the ocean, to wonder about the depths of that ocean. It was as if out of all the ideological systems I was acquainted in this lifetime, there was one ideological system that was saying, hey, what if there is a code to reality? And this code requires your attention to be on the most superior archetype. That means if in this giant world of ours, in this vast cosmos, what do we look at? What do we look at in this vast cosmos? And so when a person gets to that point where they wonder about that, it's as if they reach a point where they realize whatever opinion they have, it's the journey of life has a sort of trust in its expression as an event. Do you see? So it's kind of like philosophy being an attempt to try to wonder about the administrator of reality, and like learning from the moderators of reality, and suddenly seeing a system of thought that's saying, yo, just focus on the administrator. And so I thought, what if, there's this situation with the human journey, the human evolution, where at some point in this journey, the human mind had to wonder what the most ultimate idea and view on life is. Anybody who gets interested in that question, just as if like I'm here for a little while on this planet, what is the ultimate way to look at this whole thing? All right. Sometimes in life takes you to those moments where you feel like you need to surpass your own breaking point to see further. Okay. So for me, it reached this point where I realized I was previously I was in an isolated solo pilot trying to just one person running towards one thing, hoping others would run in the same direction, right? But now the way the cosmos is constituted, it's been completely reconstituted to me in the amplification of what I don't know. So as if religion is to me is the way I that dimension has activated in my life is one of being like, what if suddenly right now in front of me, in front of everybody, was the greatest presence of existence? What if right now we are in the presence of the most ultimate state of being? And the ultimate state of being, I'm not criticizing anyone, because it's not one, it's human beings can't really criticize each other because they're in the same situation. Honestly, what life is, regardless of where you're positioned, in what sort of system of existence you're positioned on this planet, it's as if there's this access to a conscious view for a period of time, and decisions and coordinated actions can be made, and then we exit this realm. And that's where every person's mind, the way they've held their mind, the way they've walked in life, the sort of uh, background psychological freedom they've chosen to live their life in, right? And what does freedom mean in a world where chaos is being defined as natural? I hope it's audible, but I feel it is. Um, what I'm trying to tell the view, I'm not trying to tell anybody anything anymore, to be honest, because it's reached this point where I'm like, okay, unknown ultimate X variable in the equation of human perception. So when eyes open in the morning, the human being perceives a landscape, a scenario, a three-dimensional elemental virtual reality. That's what we're existing in. Okay? Now, when this elemental conscious entity being defined by the boundary of its conscious waking state, that means it's like, I don't know who I am when I'm asleep. Do you know? Maybe some people know, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that if someone was to wonder about what is the most ultimate view on life, they would reach a crossroad where they have to choose what level of possibility of reality, is being allowed to be available. So it's as if, do I look at life as if we're trapped on a rock in the middle of nowhere, bound by strange physical laws that we fight over their ideological accurate landscape, internal ideological landscape? It's as if we're 8 billion creatures, each brain is generating models on reality based on the experience that we have of how much our perspective, our internal view on life is aligned. Like, there's a geometry to how existence happens. Now the question comes, how does this geometry happen? And there is an unknown force. There's literally, I'm like this human being, like all the philosophers and mystics in history, being like, yo, there's this unknown force here. What sort of relationship should we have? Because what religion, at least my experience of the Islamic religion, and I'm not someone trying to point people at different directions, because I'm wondering, like, where do I look at on a sphere in the middle of nowhere, right? Like, what do you do inside an infinite world, right? It's as if, like, what do you look at? So for me, I was like, okay, what's that archetype of the most ultimate view on life my mind can fathom? And I realized it's literally synonymous to the archetype of being in the presence of the greatest. That means if you can't be the greatest, right? Like, imagine there's different types of energy on this planet. There's one type of energy that's the greatest energy, okay? And this energy is not one where it's trying to control reality. Like, it's not like everybody turns into Loki and wants to, like, manipulate reality and try to make it deviate from its original view, which is honesty, and its deviation is dishonesty. What I'm trying to say is that in the inquiry of what is the most ultimate view, we wonder about how has everything appeared? How is it all here? And if we choose that the solution to this question of why is existence here is intelligent, the most ultimate archetype and pathway of that leads to the archetype of God. So religion is a system where the ego, or the ideological self, is restricted by its lack of knowing what an ultimate force is providing. So it's as if religion is like being in the presence of the ultimate original force of reality. So when I realized this, I was like, no wonder there's so many religious people on the planet. Because people underneath all their ideology are wondering about what sort of, how do I say, in what shape do you look at life? What shape do you give to what you see? And if you chose, imagine a species chose to see an archetype of the ultimate case, the ultimate view. What's the most ultimate thing that can happen for creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere? They're not on a rock in the middle of nowhere. They're in the presence of a very advanced force. You see, really what a materialist is being a person bound in the realm of realism. What reality is not just an internal view on life. It's a sort of realizing where if we thought intellect was to know everything, it's as if the human being suddenly realizes, I don't know. I don't know what the ultimate force is, but I am a presence in the display of this ultimate force. God is the archetype for the greatest presence of existence in the same sense that imagine if there was an authority that was administering all of reality. Imagine we were inside a divine kingdom. Everything from the birds, inside a divine, I don't want to say simulation, but inside an approach to life. And what are ideological structures? They're stepping stones. You have to quickly jump from an idea into a direct experience, or you're gonna just be, you'd hover in inaccurate. I don't know how to say it. What you look at, you're constantly becoming. So when you look at the idea of God, for me it was like, what does this mean? To, in some sense, bow to the greatest force of reality. For example, just think about that. As a human being, this idea approaches the individual in some certain parts of the world. And the view is fascinating because we either choose it's an empty room, or we choose that it's a room that is filled with the ultimate presence of reality. That means imagine how much more advanced human beings would be if they could know that advancement is there. It just has to happen. Imagine a football team, where they have such an advanced strategy already, and a football team that's like, all right, guys, good luck. When it's football, when people say good luck, that means we have no clue what's going to happen. There's a humility factor of wondering what if in this world there's an option of worshiping yourself, or worshiping like the inconceivable, emphasis on inconceivable, primordial force of reality. Do you see? It's kind of like we're in a world where the administrator is right there. But the more people go towards the moderators, the less conscious they are where the administrator is. What I'm trying to say is my perspective on metaphysics reached a point where now it's all in the will of God unknown. It's a trust in the occurrence of the event of existence, with the consideration of the accompaniment of the greatest archetype for the presence of existence. That means if the human mind could fathom the greatest presence of reality, it still is not as great as how the archetype is being projected. So it's as if human beings have authority in their lives. Do you see? It's as if there's laws in society. People don't have an issue with authority. They have an issue with ultimate authority. So guys, I thought it's important to share this idea at this point in life that I am honestly someone who has prayed to an ultimate ultimate original force. And the reason I'm saying this to viewers because it happened through very unique events, one after another. And tonight I'm giving this talk. I don't even know. I might just, make this a private video, but I'm just saying, like, I just felt like, what if the world misses out on this view of a very vast, like, think of it this way: modernity is multidimensionality. Religion is realizing the multidimensionality are branches of a singular trunk. So it's as if you thought your whole life you were alone, you're like, no. It's like we are in the human species physically is in symbiosis with a power that allows the moment to go forth. That power surpasses ideological experimentation and assurance. That means some things are so beyond words that you're just a silent observer in the moment. Religion is for those people who have considered that there is an ultimate force, an ultimate being. Like, just take that in. There is an ultimate being here. And I was like, okay, so if I live my life as if I am not the king of the hill, but I live my life as if I am in the presence of the king of the hill, which is beyond the hill. The king of the hill is standing beyond, but it's not a king. Why? Because the idea of God, that archetype, is so singularly and originally vast that to give it shape from our minds is to like wear sunglasses and look at the stars. So I'm living my life with this view that, okay, there is an ultimate presence to this existence, and it's intelligent, but its intelligence does not mean it's human comprehensible. Do you know? So this is why, like, I just told myself, okay, if you're going to give a talk, just talk about the advancement of civilization and point to this sentence of the God archetype. I'm just like, if somebody asked the question, what is the greatest presence of existence? What would be the answer of that? We say energy. We're like, okay, what's the background story of energy? What's the background story of, for example, the idea of God? Why were there human beings that felt that the world was alive beyond human comprehension? And they were living in that kind of earth. Not an earth so isolated from nature that it's starting to not care for it. You see, it's as if like there should be a strategy to have all human beings be surrounded by nature, all buildings surrounded by nature. I noticed it years ago in some of these lectures that there is a dehumanization happening. For example, the war in 2023 that's happening in the East, it's kind of so crazy that I think people don't know how to react. Do you know? And why are wars happening on this earth? Why? Because we don't know what to identify as. Rather than 8 billion human beings identifying as an advanced humanity, like with a maturity of caring for how the future will look like, 3,600 years from now or something. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the caliber of human we find today is is living in an outdated prototype model of what it means to be human. What it means to be human is that our inner vision from the beginning of our life till now is growing. And it's not this, I'm not saying this in certainty. The thing about life and God is that there's a sentence, honestly, that drew me to religion. One sentence, and it's that all praise belongs to the Lord of the worlds. When I heard that sentence, I think my heart cried, you know? Because it was as if for the first time I was like, so many people are chasing a sort of self-worship. But imagine there is a causal force in this realm that is very superior. If somebody says what is the most advanced way a human being can live, I would say being conscious of the superior forces of nature. You understand? It's as if, imagine you put someone in a cubicle in an office room which is locked out, like they can't, like they're not around nature, and imagine filled with computer screens, and they're like, all right, man, please study nature. Try to like enjoy this office space like you would enjoy being outside in nature. You know, the person is, their environment is kind of is shaping them. My relationship with divinity is that that there's an internal sort of purity which I don't know how to talk about, right? And it's not a purity of like I'm a pure person. It's how the soul feels with itself in existence, deep down, like at its core presence. I'm under the impression back in the day they were like, okay, my consciousness has a core. Its core is, let's give it the word soul. Let's name it soul. That my soul is the core of my consciousness. And in its vast scope, there is domains and dimensions of mind and thought. And in other domains, it's a physical event. It's as if we're being physical actors in this grand story of history, but to ourselves, we're living personalized, private visions. I saw a video from Muhammad Ali, the boxer, and somebody was like, what are you going to do after you retire? They asked the greatest a great question. And Muhammad Ali said, I'm going to prepare to meet God. Do you understand what that means? That means living life with the acknowledgement of such a supreme presence that it's as if the effect is meeting the cause. The echo is finding the original sound, returning to the original sound. That means it's as if, I think, going beyond this life is like returning to the original presence of being. But the difference in view I have now, after living in Dubai and whatnot, is that with the humility that I don't know, oh universal power, what the best decision is. But I will live with the humility that the greatest archetype also knows how great of a creation it has created. That means the framework shifted from myself being great to that the greatest presence in reality is here already. That means religion is for people who have stopped worshiping themselves. And I reached that point. And now I was like, okay, but the idea I had today, I was like, okay, this idea is so unique that just for people to hear the title, God is the archetype of the greatest presence in existence, presence of existence. That means the greatest possibility is happening. Imagine living life where you're not focused on what isn't, but what the greatest outcome is. Like right now, imagine smart people from both countries at war on the planet in 2023 suddenly are like, yo, what are we doing? We're crushing our nations. We're grinding our nations. Like, you know, it's not like this, but it's like, imagine like two armies of tanks crushing and like hitting and colliding and creating a pile of tanks. Like, it's literally, the war is like that. right? In the sense that, let me tell you what I mean by this. That means it's the egos of humans. That means it's the humanitarian nature of the soul that sees that. Imagine aliens attack right now. Okay? Imagine you're in the presence of the greatest force. Imagine God is watching. Imagine right now the greatest being is here. It's not you, you're in the presence. So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna end it off here. It's not that I'm back, and even if I'm back giving these talks, it's going to just be about the advanced civilization. I've decided to lead it that way. Metaphysics is for me, like, even though I extended into it in this talk, but I'm saying I'm trying to put it aside and leave it to God, the one and only original force of reality. Is a presence beyond all, aware of all. That idea is so powerful to me that it makes life easier for some reason. That you're not alone in a giant, you know, uh, in a giant elemental place. That this elemental place is in a way more advanced presence. That means the way the human being sees life is humorous. I think this is why comedy exists. This is why humor exists, because of the massive contrasts of different ways life can be seen. There's so much that I can't explain to the viewers of how I've experienced life in this gap. But I thought, my vision is that the advanced civilization this might be a very strange sentence. I think it's an appropriate sentence, but the advanced civilization, as someone running towards it, to me, I've realized it's God's will. That means there are so many unknown variables that it's just if life wills it into being, right? It's one of those situations. But for me, I was like, the ideas, the views, it's just cool to figure out, okay, well, how would you create an advanced civilization? Like, people think about, how am I going to create a company? Okay, how are you going to create an advanced nation? Imagine one nation was trying to be so advanced, all the other nations decided to be advanced. And advanced meant the patience to comprehend way more complex levels and views to life. Do you see? It's bizarre. There's physical war. It should be what have universities prepared for people for debates? It should be intellectual debates, not bullets being thrown. It should be voices heard, right? And it's not like it's a humanitarian effort. It's as if this planet, if you look at its history, it's kind of like you're sculpting with gentle hands this savageness of a beast, of a beastly creature, right? It's as if there's a beastly component to every human being, which is another way of saying it's like, yo, that person's driving like an animal. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's the beastly nature is present. So what I'm trying to say is, when you look at life, it's way more harsher. Human beings are way more kinder. But what's the purpose of kindness? What's the purpose of goodness? Is it not good to care for the advanced outcome of 8 billion creatures? That means, imagine the global management of Earth was so advanced that all nations were in some sense sharing their most advanced technology to make the whole planet an incredibly more advanced and incredible place. It's just that there's a Hunger Game on value system. Do you understand? It's a creature looking at something and fixating value. So my approach is that while I'm alive, I ask myself, as just a being, as some soul in the world, what did I see that was so fascinating that it made life just amazing? I would say it's the presence of the greatest archetype of life. Anybody who walks wonders about that. You'll realize that there is a type of, it's kind of bizarre. It's like I'm saying, when you love beyond the human archetype, you are the love of the beyond. And that's like, I think, the spirituality that life is pushing people to be like, yo, human beings are such advanced, complex creatures that we should not be doing war at all. Like, it's weird. When war becomes weird, when human beings have minds and can communicate, it's kind of bizarre, right? Like right now, it's this weird situation where nations have to call a timeout, and all the wars should be paused for a moment. And people are like, "Yo, what are we doing here?" Like that needs to happen. Because the human mind needs, like, we're not, it's like overpopulation is not an issue if we can live in the sky somehow, like if we figure that out as a species. The reason I wrote A Faithful Return was that I am speaking as a, I don't want to say like anymore that public on metaphysics. I'm a Muslim person who is wondering about how advanced civilization can be. I acknowledge that there is a superior presence in this realm. And my mind doesn't, it's as if more important than people, what people do, what people say, is how the presence, how the energy of the world moves originally. Like, it's as if, imagine you're tired of talking to the moderators and you just want to directly have a relationship with the administrator of reality. Do you know what that means? That means the path to that, in my the impression I have so far, is that you need to have such as an ability to experience your simplest self in the presence of the most complex. If a person has an experience like that, I think they'll understand the title of this episode. I think that I had thought about making, right now I'm not going to declare anything, but I just wanted to say that I was thinking of give like all the talks not being accessible publicly, being in the membership area. And I thought that that would be a way I think I would be comfortable too. It's as if the rest of the talks are being done in private. But anyways, all I wanted to say was that a faithful return means that I've kind of returned with the realization that I am a part of life, and the main event of life is not just my life. When you realize that, it's so humbling that it's kind of like you start to realize, just like how you sit in an Uber and the Uber driver is driving, and how safe the Uber driver drives, is kind of like realizing how, like, there's a superior force moving the moment. This superior force transcends ideology, and but it doesn't mean it cannot be amplified by ideology. What I think religion, my impression of religion is that what I thought was an intense approach turned into a beautiful portal. And a portal into a universe where I saw beyond myself. The value of reality was beyond myself. That means the ego doesn't make sense anymore. When you are in the presence of the greatest, every moment, the energy, that means it's like the original presence, energetic, the original greatest energetic presence of existence is accessible. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening, I guess. I wanted to say that when you don't know, really, then you can know. It's as if the vision's clear. Anyways, thank you. Thank you for listening.